Welcome back to Main Street Informant. In this channel, we provide information related to wealth, money, power, finance, business, and economics. In today's video, we will learn about what it means for a currency to become the world's reserve. And the question is, can China's Yuan be a viable replacement? Renminbi is the official currency of China. Yuan is the principal unit of account for that currency. It has been predicted that Yuan could eventually overtake the British pound, the euro, and the Japanese yen as the next global reserve currency. Yet, is this even possible? Potentially, given that China is the largest trading nation and that 125 countries consider China to be their top trading partner. Let's find out in this video. Even while its economy is expanding, China's currency is not a global reserve, which will restrict both its economic potential and, possibly more significantly, its influence. Meanwhile, the US dollar has been performing exceptionally well, and a large part of that is because of the uncertain economic climate around the world, which is prompting wealthy individuals and institutions to search for secure locations to store their money. The size, power, and dominance of the American economy and financial markets are major factors in the reserve status. Despite massive debt, trillions of dollars in deficit spending, and unconstrained dollar printing, the most secure option to store money is still in US Treasury securities. The dollar continues to be the most redeemable currency for facilitating global trade because of the trust and confidence that the rest of the world places in the United States' capacity to pay its debts. What does it mean for a nation and its currency to be the reserve currency of the world? Benefits. Lots of them. First off, it greatly reduces the risk associated with exchange rates while conducting overseas business. Second, decreased foreign exchange risk increases America's appeal to foreign investors significantly. Third, the federal government's debts are wholly denominated in the currency they control. Thus, there is virtually no possibility of default in their part. Fourth, it makes it simpler for the government to raise money initially. Additionally, it makes it much simpler for companies to acquire investors, giving them more funds to invest and adding value to the domestic economy. Last but not the least, holding control over the global reserve provides the US with unimaginable lobbying power. This kind of power is undoubtedly very appealing, which is why the Chinese government hasn't exactly kept a secret that it wants the yuan to replace the American dollar as the next global reserve, or at the very least, be a competitive alternative. Obviously, the US dollar has not always served as the world's reserve currency. It has only existed in its present form since the early 1900s, and it wasn't until the middle of the 20th century that it actually replaced the British pound as the world reserve currency, which it held during the colonial era of international trade. But everything was altered by the Bretton Woods Agreement. Toward the conclusion of World War II, a blueprint for a successful international trade and financial system was sketched out by 44 nations at a meeting. This agreement fixed the value of the US dollar to a specific quantity of gold. Then, all other participating countries' currencies were tied to the US dollar. Because they knew they could always trade their dollars for gold at any time, should the need arise, countries were able to hold US dollars in reserve instead of actual gold. Due to the likelihood that the currencies of the trading nations were already tied to the US dollar, US dollars were the standard option for conducting any form of international trade. The US dollar continues to be used as the global reserve currency. The International Monetary Fund estimates that central banks maintain around 59% of the reserves in US dollars. A large portion of the reserves is held in cash or US bonds like US Treasuries. foreign debt held in dollars is still increasing, with the levels expected to reach $13.4 trillion by the middle of 2022. The majority of the people would assume that this makes the dollar the world's strongest currency. After the euro and obviously the US dollar, the Chinese yuan is currently the third most widely used reserve currency. Trade is China's best weapon for introducing its currency to the global market. A choice is made each time trade is conducted between two foreign nations. In casual commerce, the importer typically gives the exporter payment in their home currency. However, on the scale of international commodity transactions, it is just simpler to rely on a reliable third party, which is usually always the US dollar. Due to the fact that practically all international oil sales are conducted in US dollars, you may have heard US dollars referred to as petrodollars. This means that large oil exporting nations naturally accumulate substantial amounts of this currency. The conflict in Ukraine has also aided China's efforts to promote its yuan internationally. The so-called BRICS economies, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, met to examine their ongoing commercial connections, primarily in light of the sanctions imposed by the West on Russia. Trade between these extremely powerful economies has increased by 38% this year, as they have become more competitive with one another since losing access to the West's market. China is profiting from this in more ways than just obtaining cheap oil from Russia, given that it is the trading bloc's largest and most significant member. It is pushing for the yuan to become the de facto means of exchange. However, some contend that China's governance and development designs would make it difficult for the yuan to become as globally accepted as the dollar. Concerns about China's political stability are raised by its one-party system, lack of right to vote, and lack of a mechanism for a peaceful and orderly transition of power. The US seems politically chaotic, with the two major parties battling each other, culminating in nothing getting done or creating divisions between ideological or racial groups. But its governance system of checks and balances provides equal power among the executive, legislative, and judicial branches. Another challenge is that the yuan is not completely convertible, which makes international money transfers difficult. Additionally, China's economic development model, especially how the yuan is valued, is not in line with the free trade concept. What about sanctions? Should sanction be considered when selecting the next reserve currency? Numerous countries condemn the US sanctions against their governments. Sanctions on countries deemed to be unfriendly to the United States have a disastrous impact on both the economies of the targeted countries and the entire world. The most recent example is when the US and its allies imposed sanctions on Russia for invading Ukraine. But in 2021, China also imposed sanctions on Australia because it wanted to look into the origin of the coronavirus to prevent another outbreak. Foreign currency reserves are subject to the whims of the issuing governments. As you can see, any government can impose sanction on unfriendly countries, and China is no different. Although the yuan has gained significantly popularity, replacing the US dollars as a reserve currency is not going to be easy or quick. Since sanctions are not favorable among many countries and have the potential for crippled effects on the world's economies, perhaps a government-backed currency may not be a good replacement option. Could a decentralized currency like Bitcoin be the next world's reserve currency? Let me know your thoughts by commenting below. Please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more interesting contents like this. You can check out more videos on the channel and share. It will help my videos reach more people. See you in the next one.